Hello, welcome to AB Lifetime, channel on transpersonal psychology. Today I am in Upper Manhattan, West Side, with Dr. Tian Dayton. Hello, Tian.
Hello, Anna.
I'm very
Nice to
happy
have
to
you.
see you.
I'm glad you're here.
And we are talking today about how to use psychodrama in work with trauma and addiction.
Don't say what you need to say. Be quiet, look good. Don't get angry.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut. Don't trust, don't talk, don't feel. If you can do that and basically just feel those feelings, it doesn't take long to heal. Walk over to feeling you don't like experiencing. Well, that is essentially an entree into trauma work. We don't want to experience something. Why?
Just to start with, could you please tell a little bit more about what was your experience, how you brought psychodrama in this field, in work with trauma and addiction?
Because of personal experience, really. I ran into it in my own recovery when I was about 35. I went to a program that I wanted to go to for a personal experience and to deal with being an adult child of an alcoholic, to deal with the trauma of that, really, although we didn't use that word at the time. And I went to a 5-day program. I didn't know it was psychodrama. I didn't know for months afterwards it was psychodrama, but it changed my life. And what changed my life, I think, was the focus of the program. It was focused on adult children of alcoholics who'd grown up with addiction. So it was with people who really understood my situation. And to this point, no one had realized that you had any effect. We thought, just get the alcoholic sober, everybody will be fine. And of course, we weren't fine. And we were adults living out these ghost-like images of growing up and not knowing quite what to do with what could only be called unresolved trauma, unresolved grief. And I went to this program, and we did, talk to your father, use a bataka, talk to somebody else who's playing your father. And I thought it seemed odd at first.
I like everybody at first psychodrama session.
Yes, I thought, what? And then I loved it, and I was so relieved. It was so much fun. It was such a relief to have somebody say, get angry, cry, say what you need to say, because everything that happens in an alcoholic family is, don't say what you need to say. Be quiet, look good, don't get angry, keep your mouth shut, don't trust, don't talk, don't feel. Those are Claudia Black's rules of an alcoholic family. So that's how I started.
Wow, that's very interesting. So, and you did this 5 days program, and your family was included,
No.
or you did just by yourself?
I had done work with my family. Actually, it was even psychodrama what I did with my family. It turns out we went once to family therapy. I kept dragging my family into therapy. We went once to family therapy and a few sessions. That helped me a lot. I'm not sure. I think it helped my family, but it certainly helped me. And another time we did what's called a family reunion with a woman called Sharon Wegscheider Cruz, who trained with Virginia Satir. And I, again, got my family to come and get together, and we all got together. I mean, the kids, everybody from 8 years old on up came to this. And we used sculpting. Sculpt your perception of the families. And that one also I found tremendously liberating. This was now before the 35-year-old one. This was when I was maybe 30. Then we moved to London, and it was great. I mean, I left it behind. It was great. So when I came back 2 years later, I did have a sense of what I could do if I wanted to do more, and then more was more, definitely more. Maybe I was 34. It's 33, something in there.
How did it turn into your focus of your profession?
Yes. Well, I was a therapist at the time, or studying. I can't remember just where it fell in. And then actually what happened was I was doing drama therapy. A form of drama therapy. I wasn't a drama therapist, but I was in California so I was part of the development of using drama for therapeutic purposes. I was working with children, and I was now getting a master's to work with adults. So I was working with adults at this point in my career, and I did this psychodrama. I loved it, and then I still didn't know it was called psychodrama. Everybody called it experiential therapy. And then I got a flyer. I still today don't know how I got this flyer. And my husband picked it out of the mail, and he said, says psycho and drama. This is everything you do. This is what you love. Why don't you check this out? So I put it back in the pile, and I ignored it. And then he pulled it out again. And months later, I was still there in the pile. He said, "Why? This is happening now this week. It's psycho and drama. This is what you love. Why don't you check this out?" And literally, my children had play dates that day. They were little. And so I thought, okay, I can actually go. And I went on Thursday to the Roosevelt Hotel. I went to Zirka Moreno's workshops, Bob Soroka's, Adam Blattner. Well, I can't remember who else. And then on Friday we went up to the country for the weekend, and I couldn't stop talking about it. So my husband said, "Look, it's still going on Sunday. Why don't you just go in and finish it off?" And I did, and I never turned back. My life became psychodrama driven. After I went to everything, I changed my focus of the masters. I just knew.
You fall in love.
I fell in love. I was coming home, as Zirka calls it. Zirka has this way she talks about it when people find psychodrama, that we feel we're coming home, and I felt I was coming home. Wow. And then I was already working in the addictions field, so I was so excited about, I was coming back to my colleagues in the field and saying, "We're doing psychodrama, and there's a way that people do it that's much better than the way we're doing it." It was, okay. I mean, I just said, we don't have to keep reinventing this wheel. It's been beautifully, I mean, the architecture of psychodrama is flawless. The 5 elements and the techniques of doubling, role reversal, not only are they brilliant, but they are very necessary. To do any form of experiential therapy without role reversal is to do it poorly, to not do it in the way it needs to be done. And doubling is a window into the unconscious that is remarkable. To say nothing of the soliloquy and all of the other techniques. But doubling and role reversal will change the life of anybody doing experiential work, and no one should do experiential work without it. And the addictions field at that time was doing everything without it. And while it was very helpful to people, and it was very helpful. We were doing a Virginia Satir version of it, who had actually trained, I found out from Zirka, with psychodramatists. But she had then brought her, she had changed the protagonist to the star. She'd kind of let go of the role reversal. But she is the one who really started bringing it to the addictions field. And then she trained Sharon Wakescheider-Cruz, who also started to bring it into the addictions field. So my contribution was to bring real psychodrama into the addictions field. The experiential work was already there. But I spent my entire career devoting myself to training the addictions field professionals to do good psychodrama. And because everybody in the field knew they loved it. It was trauma work. It's Bessel, Vanderkolk loves it for trauma work.
Right.
It really is for working with trauma, you can't beat this role-playing method. You need to be able to reverse roles, because one of the things you lose in trauma is an ability to empathize. An ability to see. You get lost in the other person's role. So it's not empathy, actually. It's just getting lost in it's codependency. Or you get stuck in your own read on a situation and become somewhat frozen, I think, because of the trauma, because of the way the thinking mind shuts down. So you sort of freeze experience. You freeze the sensorial content of a circumstance, but the thinking mind, because it's shut down, doesn't make sense of that experience. It doesn't fit it into the context of one's life. So what psychodrama allows you to do is revisit not just the moment, thinking about the moment, to embody the moment, to live in the body you lived in at the time you were being traumatized. And if you can do that and basically just feel those feelings, it doesn't take long to heal. But you have to tolerate the reliving, because that's what will happen, so the pieces can fall back together. What most people do is we don't want to go near that moment, and we spend a lifetime staying away from that moment. So what could be healed in a rather short period of time gets very complicated out there, and we live it out, as Carl Jung talks about, as fate, because we can't embody the moment and heal it.
Wow. It's so amazing. When you explain this, I feel like I have goosebumps.
Yeah.
And I just, like, you explain it so clearly, and it's so short.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I do.
Wow.
I understand it.
Wow. You mentioned that you were trained with Zerka.
Yes.
Could you please tell a little bit more about that experience?
Yes. I trained in the city with Bob Soroka, who I said I had seen at the conference, and is so talented and makes psychodrama hilarious. I mean, I thought anything this is funny, it has got to be healing. And then in the country, I had the great good fortune of going to Omega for a 5-day or 3-day thing with Zerka. And I had been doing drama games at the time. I had this first book, and the book was finished and actually in editing when I found psychodrama. But because I fell in love with it and realized that people weren't using the word psychodrama in my field, I went back into the editing and put the word in and put Moreno in. Every place I could put the name psychodrama or Moreno into drama games, I put it in, even though I was just learning about it, because I thought our field needs to start seeing that word and associating it with the role-playing we're doing. So Zerka, I did hand Zerka my book, and I sort of thought, maybe it'll go on his shelf, maybe she'll forget. The next day, this was a huge workshop, about 120 people. She said, I read your book last night, and there was very nice, I like this book very much. There, page 82, I think, had a typo. And I thought,
wow.
So,
in which book was that?
Drama Games.
That
was my first book, ages ago. And so I was in this workshop for 5 days, and I was watching everybody, right? And I wasn't even necessarily going to dare to do my own work with Zerka. But she walked over to me. This morning we had 2 little dogs, and it became very clear we could not keep these little 2 male dogs for a lot of reasons I won't go into. But I've never had to give away a dog. We found good homes. We did, but it was awful giving away 2 dogs. So I was at that day, having left my home and the children, and knowing that was the end of the dogs. We were giving them away that day. Zerka walked through the room, and I was way in the back, and she said, "How are you?" And I said, "Fine." Mm-hmm. And she said, "No, what? Something happened?" And I said, "Well, we gave away dogs." And she said, "Come up, we'll work with that." And we worked with giving away these dogs, and of course that morphed into, I had cancer the year before or something like that, and I had to have a radical hysterectomy, which I had already had 2 children, so it wasn't a big problem, but we didn't have a third. And so I did connect having these little dogs as kind of the third, this little ducks and with this snout. So anyway, there was that connection which she made, that I was saying goodbye also to that possibility. And then I looked in the room and I thought, this is really too bad for everybody. Who can relate to this but me? During the sharing, everybody was talking about their dogs, and I thought, this stuff is really remarkable. And, So after that, I asked Zerka if she ever does groups. And she said, "Well, dear, I can't seem to get a group to stay together." And I thought, "You what? So I said, "What if I can get a group to stay together?" She said, "Okay." So I got a group together. I don't even, to this day, I just kept bringing people from around. And we met at Beacon. We met at Beacon, and we would meet for the full day on these white plastic chairs. It was wonderful to be on the stage because it was the psychodramatic stage, minus the one last level of the stage that didn't fit in the room, so they had to toss it. But there are 2 levels, and Zerka loved that stage. And we had a group that met, several times throughout the year on weekends for full days. And I did that with Zerka for a number of years. And training with Zerka is like nothing else. She is the inception. She's right. She was Moreno's muse. Moreno has this perfectly orchestrated method, a genius method, and Zerka made it work because really it was Zerka who refined all this. Moreno would pick the role players in the beginning, right? He'd say, "Okay, you play the father, you play the this, come on," and he was very directive. Apparently, I never saw him.
She brought the structure.
Zerka figured out how it really needed to run, to be egocentric, to be protagonist driven, to be. Zerka played a very not so visible role, but she held the stage, and she kept. After a psychodrama with Zerka, you really didn't feel. You felt it was your drama. It was a completely interior experience, and even when she was being directive, you still felt it was your drama because she was so tuned in. And the thing that was unusual about Zerka as well, and this is worth noting. Every time I walked out of a thing with Zerka, I walked out clean. I didn't carry things with me. In the addictions field, it was a big problem. People were carrying things out with them. Yes. And it was because we didn't use the structure properly, and we didn't share. It should go warm-up, enactment, sharing. And in the addictions field, we were going warm-up, action, sharing. Then you carry things out, but you need a lot of sharing so that the group can continue to heal.
Right.
Because they are, after all, a dynamic part of the whole process. And things get you might do more protagonist work as an audience member than even in the protagonist role.
Right.
Because it can be so powerful. It's like the Greek theater. You see your life happening, so you need to spend a lot of time in the sharing. And Zerka really allowed for that. She really made sure everybody shared, and we were, as I said, on these hard plastic chairs, and people would share to just boring as stiff. And it was the end of a long 8-hour day. I wanted to go home, and she would just go. After you thought you couldn't stand a minute more, she'd say, "Is there anything else? Anything else?" And you just think. But nobody walked out with anything. And that was masterful on her part. She knew and understood that needed to happen because they were, they did their work with very damaged people originally at Beacon Hospital with psychotics and people who really were, whose psyches required special handling. And they knew how to do that. The other thing, let's see, Zerka loved the stage. She respected the stage. She, what Moreno said, the stage is enough. Zerka embodied that. She used the space on the stage. She used the timing on the stage. She knew that, that to put your life out on a stage was in itself healing. You don't have to get fancy. You don't have to just be brilliant. And she was very zen about it. She didn't preconceive. Preconception, prescripting is one of the big psychodrama no-nos. It is all wrong for trauma work, for any psychodrama work. To have ideas about what you want to do with people, I feel that's a really wrong thing because we're asking people to go into the deepest parts of themselves. How do we know what they're going to find? They don't know what they're going to find. You go in and something might shift and you need to go where it has shifted to because that's where the gold is. And if you have an idea about where to go, you're not going to let them do the healing they're able to do. And and you might even mess it up because you'll get them to do the healing you think they should be doing. And how do we know? We don't know the inside of people's psyches. We might not even know a person that well.
Yeah.
It's very presumptuous. So to respect the stage, to give somebody the stage, and to have the techniques so in your wheelhouse and so well known that you can do whatever needs to be done. And I also I think psychodrama's a little like fly fishing. You are on unsteady slimy rocks sometimes, so as a new psychodramatists experience this, and you need to pass through that place until you will be very solid on the stage. But if you can't tolerate that woozy feeling about where am I, you can't go where the protagonist needs to go. You have to then get them to go where you need them to go so you can feel in control again. But you have to, this is a spiritual paradox, you have to lose control to find it in psychodrama. You have to be zen and in the moment. Otherwise you're not really doing psychodrama. You're doing something else with people standing up, you're moving them around a stage at your will, and you're imposing your will. And I think that's a big error.
Is it correct that you use the same exactly sharing right now? You let people talk so they would speak everything what they have, or you would somehow
I don't have always the luxury of that time. I let people share as much as they need to, as much as we have time for. I don't try to control the sharing very much, and I ask people to share fully. I try to train people not to, if somebody's sharing so loosely that everybody's going to tip over and make sure because they can't stand it, you can say something like, get a feeling that let's see if we can focus the sharing a little bit. Let the feelings find words, because what they're often doing then is avoiding finding words, or they're liking the attention, but they don't want to let go of it, so they just sort of blabber. But eventually people get the idea, and you can guide it gently. Start closing from the beginning. I start from the time I know I respect the clock. I've always had to work on a clock, so I don't open up what I don't think I can bring closure to, and yet I open up a lot. But you can work with time. You have to, as a psychodramatist. You owe it to everybody else in the group. And also, if you don't have that much sense of, one thing I saw walking through the park on the way to work one morning was somebody working with a seal, a trained seal, and I thought, that is exactly like what psychodrama feels like. You are working with this massive behemoth, big black, undulating mass, and you're giving him fish. You're trying to get it to go where you want it. I realize that sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but it sounds controlling. But it's not. You're working with something that feels massive and out of control because you're working with somebody's unconscious. And you're working with it from here. You're not sitting in their unconscious, and it feels like it can really get away from you. So you need to be deft, and you need to be work from here. You need to be using the tools of psychodrama to work from here, because you're not in the base of the seal. You're bringing the seal into a motion that will be recognizable.
For example, if you have the group, 2 hours ongoing group, do you have from the beginning, you already know how much time you will have for sharing?
Yes.
Okay.
I stop in time so that if I know we need a half hour for sharing or for 40 minutes, I stop. I bring the drama to closure. If something just can't be brought to closure, that happens occasionally. Not that often. I will check with the group and say, look, are you okay with speed sharing at the end because she really needs to, or he really needs to? And if the group is okay with it, they'll signal you. Then we do it. And then I'll say, okay, we really need to, we've got this many minutes, that means it's 2 minutes per person, so just focus and speed share, please, and then grab somebody else I'm in a 12-step world, so
Yes.
the whole thing is grab somebody after the meeting and share with them. Take care of this on your own.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah. I think the groups operate differently. Analytic groups don't even talk at all between sessions. But if you're in the addictions world,
Yeah.
everybody talks
Yes.
all the time.
Right.
And then you see each other at meetings, so you
Uh-huh.
have to accommodate to that world, and it's a great advantage in this kind of work because they have other resources. If you have to kind of clam up and push it down and not, that makes no sense. Once it's up, you want to keep working with it.
Right.
And you're not the only source of wisdom.
Yeah.
Your job is to just facilitate what Marina said in a group. Each person becomes a healing agent of the other, and you may not be the best healing agent for that person. The walk out of group and down the block with somebody else may be a much better moment for them. The healing comes from everywhere.
Would you please tell a little bit about relational trauma therapy?
So yes, the model RTR, relational trauma therapy, which actually I think I'm not even. It's not even a model. These are processes. They're discrete and they can be used however the practitioner wants to use them. I originally started with a model because someone in California wanted me to train her staff in the work I do with trauma. She opened a treatment center just for the work I do. But I didn't really want to go to California all the time because I live in New York.
Right.
So I had to come up with a model and a model somebody else could train staff in, etc. I had to do something that had legs. So that's how this started, really. I had all of these processes I was doing in the living stage.
Yes.
So the 2/3 of the living stage is all these processes, and the reason I do these processes, it's very specific. I was a Montessori teacher a long time ago, and you can put things into steps, a zillion steps, and you can really execute how you work with a child through using all these steps. So then I was doing drama therapy with children, and this is in my late 20s, early 30s, and the budgets got cut. So I wanted to find a way, with my Montessori training, all those steps, to do something with drama games that could be done by a creative teacher, because I thought, this is so sad to lose drama. I mean, it's so important for children. They love it, and they were cutting it. So that's why I did drama games, and I did a year's curriculum development course at Columbia to create the easiest, most user-friendly interface with the teacher possible. And then when I became a therapist, I started doing versions of that with clients, and it evolved into something else that that started when I did I started to integrate research with sociometry. For example, the locograms are golden. They're fabulous. There's nothing better than a spectrogram. It goes anywhere. It's remarkable. The locograms are also wonderful, but they were limited for my population because first of all, you only tend to use 4 or 5 spots on the floor with a logogram. Not that you need more, but I needed more. And I also needed to incorporate research. Because the reason I liked that is because in the addictions field we use a psychoeducational model. We educate as we heal. And I happen to love that because it puts the responsibility and the initiative with the client. You're giving them all the information you have and saying, look, I trust you. You're an intelligent person. Listen to it all. Take what you like and leave the rest. Get your life to work. And I'm not at all interested in the model where I've got all the answers. I'm so aware that I don't. So I just isn't comfortable. And I don't like having all the answers. So you know,
Yes.
this makes life dull.
Yes, I know, that was
You
nice.
know, it's silly, it's unintelligent.
I like how you
It's
joke.
silly. I mean, and it makes you very wooden, and pretty soon if you don't have the answers, then you have to make them up.
Right.
And then people start to see through you, and then you
Mhm.
look ridiculous, and then, you know, it's an unintelligent place to be.
Mhm.
And it's also wrong, because I knew all the people who were acting like they had all the answers, and I knew what their lives looked like. And you know, their lives didn't look like they had all the answers. So so I started to experiment. The first thing I experimented with was grief work. I just did a logogram. You know, Bowlby's research: numbness, yearning and searching, disorganization, anger, despair, reorganization. Stand in one of those. And there's always other, okay? So there's never
Yes,
put
other.
another. So I played with that as a logogram. But then they started cutting budgets again in New York State, in all the treatment facilities. And I had training groups by this time. And one of the members in my training group came in practically in tears, and he said, I have 35 people in a room, and I'm supposed to do therapy with them. And we all in the group just said, oh my God. But then I thought, you know, when I went home, if anyone should be able to solve this, it should be a psychodramatist, a sociometrist. So let me play. And I thought, we always did these feeling checks, you know, feeling happy, anxious, you know. And I was bored at this time with feeling checks. So I thought, what if, I mean, I didn't do them, they were in treatment centers. So I put the feelings on the floor, a bunch of feelings. I came into group with 20 feelings and put them on the floor. Along with other, and started asking questions, criterion questions, like walk over to a feeling you're experiencing right now. People would share. Walk over to a feeling you don't like experiencing. Well, that is essentially an entree into trauma work. We don't want to experience something. Why? Walk over to a feeling that when you encounter it in another person, it triggers you. Well, that's trauma work. So I started to, and also it's sociometric, it's trauma work because it reconnects you with yourself, and remember the disconnect that happens in trauma, and it reconnects you with other people, because if you're first of all, if you're in a small group, you're sharing and everybody can hear. If you're in a large group, you can share with the people who are on the same feeling as you are. So that makes them sociometrically aligned. So this is immediately using the group to engage. You know, if you work in treatment centers as I have, you are very aware that people have more to give each other than you have to give them if they are newly sober, right? They're in the same place. So our job then becomes, how do we sociometrically align them so that they can give to each other, because they can share. And then I started using, you know, timelines, and it just exploded. I didn't expect it to explode, and I didn't tell people about it for a long time because I thought psychodramatists would think it was too prescriptive. But I knew it wasn't prescriptive because the room was just bouncing. And it was very autonomous. It was very, so you were also telling people, make a choice, make another choice, make another choice. Now make another choice and put your hand on the shoulder of someone you identify with. So you're connecting people in a variety of ways, and that is trauma resolution. Because you're, as I said, connecting people with self and other, and around criterion that is meaningful. And you're having them not only share, but listen as other people share. Listen without getting triggered. Listen with no crosstalk, which is something traumatized people are not so good at, you know? So you look around and people are listening, and you know but eventually it's a playful atmosphere.
Right.
You get good at listening. You get good at reaching out. It's that the stakes are lower because it's like a game. It's like a big sociometric game.
And you use it as warm up?
I use it as for it can be anything. It depends on your skill level.
Okay.
I use it as a warm up. But it can be a fairly complete process, and teenagers like it.
Oh yes.
Because they will use it as the whole process. Because then you're not interfering with you're not telling them, you're not in somebody's face. You're just giving them the autonomy and connecting them with each other. and they can stop criticizing you for a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if they're just looking at you, you're going to get a lot of things wrong.
Uh-huh.
But if they're giving opportunities to deal with each other, to heal with each other, there are very few situations where you can't use it, and you can change the things that are on the floor. Once I saw feelings work, right? They were working like gangbusters, and they were working for all my trainees. So every time we would try something, they would test it. I mean, by the time this model isn't evidence-based, it has so much evidence behind it that I've never put on paper, because I did nothing that didn't work in several different venues. I don't publish anything that hasn't worked in many venues. And it was working so well for my trainees with their various venues. So I tried, what if I did trauma symptoms? Because when you teach people about trauma symptoms on a chalkboard, they listen to about 4 and then they just doze off. Then it's overwhelming, and it starts to flood, I remember doing a luncheon with this. I remember looking around this big room with all these people around tables, and they were literally just going, it's too much.
Yes.
So how do you teach about trauma so that you don't shut people down again? That doesn't happen anymore, actually. This was in the beginning. People are used to thinking about trauma now. They don't fall asleep. But in the beginning, in the early 80s, in the mid-80s, let's say, it was all new information. Now it's not, and everybody's, listening.
Alert.
But I put symptoms all over the floor. And what ended up happening was little tiny case studies would appear.
Right.
And so people were healing each other. Because what one are you identifying with? Say a sentence about why you're identifying with that. Why you're identifying with hypervigilance. So why you're identifying with somatic disturbances, or why you're identifying with rage. So as people shared, with this again normalizes everything, and there are little case examples that people listen to in each other. And that's such an awakening for people, and it happens so efficiently and quickly with a floor check. And if you keep it moving and keep it safe, it's actually a pretty safe way to explore these symptoms. Because you can identify with one, you can share immediately, and you can also not identify with some. So you get to choose which ones you identify with. They're not 10 on a board that you think maybe you're supposed to have 9 of. There are 20 on a floor that you think have the ones that you identify with. If you don't identify, great, don't go there. So it puts you in the driver's seat of what you choose to identify with, and that's very important. And it makes you the chooser. So you get to choose. It removes layers of resistance from the client point of view.
And you always have the other
always other. Always other. Always other. I started to put symptoms, manifestations of anger. That one is a golden one with populations who deal with anger, because we're unaware of how our anger is manifesting: stonewalling, criticizing, judging. There are so many manifestations. Rage. So I've worked with that. That works very well in men's groups too, where you can talk about it in a very controlled way. You can feel it. You can experience it all, but you're not. Bataka work is a little tricky because you want to be able to express repressed stuff using a bat and get it out of your system. But there's a fine line between getting it out of your system and putting more into your system. So I only use Bataka work sparingly. I like it sometimes, but you don't want to rely on that. That's not anger. Wait, if you think of anger work as just beating a pillow, you're missing all the other manifestations of anger. And this floor check with anger starts to get people much more reflective on how their anger manifests, or what kind of anger manifestation they have trouble with in other people.
Technical question. What are the best books? I know that in the could you please tell just
Sure.
which books are the best for people who want to learn more and understand, just have the steps how to
With
how to
RTR.
yes, which books are the best?
They have this on your bookshelf book.
Yes, I
This
have
isn't
it. It's my
RTR, but this you will go to a zillion times, right? Just
yes,
yeah.
it's my favorite.
Yeah.
I'm just when I moved to the US, that was my first book which I bought on psychodrama, and I use it almost each day.
It is one of those kind of books, and also
It is.
here, just to say, and again, this isn't RTR, but the first 100 pages I have tried to decode psychodrama because what are all these things? People weren't writing that down when I started training. You had to just sort of figure it out, and you felt really kind of dumb not figuring it out. So I thought, why not just write it down and make it simple? And
yes, and it is very simple.
Yeah.
I will just show it like this. So it is The Living Stage, a step-by-step guide to psychodrama, sociometry, and experiential group therapy. Wonderful.
Thank you. These are on Amazon. They're kind of a work in progress, and I say they look like a model, but I would emphasize use them any way you want to. There's no order to this. Just use them. I have to redo this at some point. But this is what I've got so far.
I think this is John Allison, what he was telling me. He told special thank you for this book. So it is a relational
John
trauma
Olson.
repair.
He knows how to use it. I mean, and he does beautiful. I wish I'd love to be in his group. So yeah, this is all laid out very simply. And if you are working in the addictions field, if you're working with trauma, it will make your job much easier on Amazon. This is a workbook that I created to go with this, but I'm not sure this works as well as I wanted it to. The better workbook is the Emotional Sobriety Workbook. That people buy more of that one.
And it is just, the name is Recovering from Trauma Workbook.
But the Emotional Sobriety Workbook is more popular.
Okay.